It's time for another exciting edition of the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. Stay tuned as we discuss local and national sports from Southeast Missouri and beyond. And now, without further ado, let's get on with the show. The Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle is brought to you by Royal Retros. If you like cool throwback jerseys of defunct sports teams, Royal Retros is the place to buy. If you go to royalretros.com and you order with the code SportsDesk, all one word, you can get a little bit off your order. So check out Royal Retros. And now on with the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.
And welcome back to another exciting edition of the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. I'm Mike Bueller.
I'm Mark Sanders.
This is Kyle Roberts.
And we have a special guest this week introducing
Mike Tucker.
Yes, that's right.
AKA Tuck. He's been a guest with us on several occasions, but thanks to the July 4th holiday, he's going to be able to spend the entirety of the show with us live. So, Tuck, looking forward to having you with us.
Hey guys, thanks again for having me as always.
All right. Okay.
Oh wow, and I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I just want to say we have a full show today. We're going to talk some Cardinals. We're going to be talking a lot of NHL. That's one of the reasons Tuck is with us. And we've got some other things going on. But without further ado, Mark, take her away.
Yeah, let's talk about the St. Louis Cardinals. And as we approach the All-Star break, I'd like to take sort of a bird's eye view from way overhead, because this has been an up and down season for the St. Louis Cardinals. I think that to this point we can say that they've overachieved in terms of expectations. They're currently sitting 6 games above 500. They are 5 games out of first place behind the Cubs. They're 2 behind the Milwaukee Brewers, who sit at 3 games behind the Cubs. And if we look at the wild card standings, the Mets lead the National League wild card. They're a half a game up on the Brewers. And the Cardinals are currently tied with San Diego Padres for the 3rd spot. So they're definitely in the discussion for postseason play at this point. However, after a 3-game sweep in Cleveland, they went to take on the last place Pittsburgh Pirates. And not only did they lose all 3 games, they failed to score a single run in all 3 of those games. In fact, they have not scored, but because they were shut out in their last 2 games at home against the Chicago Cubs, they have now gone 49 innings since scoring a run against National League opposition. And they will open a 3-game series in Chicago tomorrow afternoon. So the question, and we'll send this around the panel, and Mike, we'll start with you. Going into the second half of the Major League Baseball regular season, are the Cardinals contenders or pretenders?
I think they're still contenders because, as of right now, they're still over the final wild card spot. But still, 49 innings without scoring a run and getting not only swept, but completely shut out by a last-place team is embarrassing. It's like getting pantsed on national television. It's ugly. It's uglier than Quasimodo and Igor starting a death metal band.
That would be pretty bad.
They're still contenders, but yikes. Guys, you got to do better than this, or that's going to change really quick.
Yeah, Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a bad look. Now, I will say, I will give a little bit of flowers to the last place Pirates. They were on a heater coming into our series. This is the same team that dropped 30 runs over a 3-game series against the Mets and only allowed 3. So they're only allowing 0.5 runs over their last 6 games. So credit to Pittsburgh. They're on a heater. Maybe we just caught them at a time as a wagon, but it's not a good look. The offense has to be more consistent. and you lose a game and you lose 1-0 on the road against Pittsburgh, and that again, it's a bad look, and it creates the wrong momentum going into the break. They've really got to turn it around in this series at Wrigley, because that's going to set a good precedent for the second half. But I do still think they're contenders. They're obviously not out of it. Playing a little bit above expectations this year, but you've got to win more than you lose. And coming off of an excellent series against Cleveland, I expected that to continue against Pittsburgh, and those boys fell flat on their face. So hopefully Ollie and crew are able to get this ship righted a little bit, play better on the road. Wrigley's always hostile. So yes, for now.
Tuck, what do you think?
Well, I am as optimistic and joyful of a hockey fan as I am that cynical and jaded as a baseball fan. So take all of this with a big block of salt. And I echo all the points about, getting shut out and getting embarrassed and all that stuff. But here's the thing. Since you said take a high-level bird's-eye view of it, I kind of did. And two things jumped out at me. First of all, high level, I don't see anybody in the National League right here, right now, barring injury, barring, crazy catastrophe, that could beat, the Detroit Tigers, right? So within the National League, I don't see anybody in the Central that's going to be able to beat the Dodgers right here, right now. At the beginning of the season, I thought they were going to be about a 500 team. They're 6 over, so yeah, they're exceeding expectations. But they're 5-5 in the last 10. So are they contenders? Yeah, probably. They're probably, they're looking squarely at a wild card. Is it going to go anywhere? I don't think so. And again, I'm a big pessimist. Completely discount this from me. But that's kind of where I think I land on it.
Yeah, I don't have any major disagreements with any of you. I do think that if they play 500 ball for the rest of the season, and I think that this is probably a 500 ball club, maybe a little bit better, but even 500 ball will at least keep them within shouting distance of a wild card spot as we approach the end of the season. The lack of offense recently, I think, concerns me more than anything else, because they have hitters on that team. They have demonstrated that they can score a lot of runs, and that they can score a lot of runs late. Strangely enough, the pitching hasn't been the problem recently. The pitching is holding up despite the fact that Michaelis and Fedde really should be shipped off to the middle of nowhere at the trade deadline. And that's something that we'll definitely be talking about as the month goes along. But I think my biggest concern about the St. Louis club is consistency, because they seem to lose their ability to score when their pitching is good, and when their pitching is, when they're hitting, their pitching falls apart, and they lose games 9-7 and 10-8 and things like that. And the record really bears this out. Some concerning things for me this series in Chicago, and we've got lined up Michaelis, Liberatore, and Fedde. That looks like we would be lucky to win one game out of 3. And then we come home for 2 series before the All-Star break, up against the Washington Nationals. And let's see, the Natties are in last place in the NL East, so obviously they're going to sweep the Cardinals. And then the Braves come in, but the Braves are surprisingly bad to me. They're 7 games below 500 at 39-46. They're 11 games out of first in the East. They're really not part of the conversation. So I think if you can salvage even one game out of the 3 in Chicago and then come home and win both of those home series, I think that's going to give the club a lot of momentum coming out of the break. But if they continue to play for the next couple of weeks the way they played in Pittsburgh, I think there is a real chance, I mean a real chance, that they could be sellers rather than buyers at the trade deadline.
I would much prefer that they are buyers at the trade deadline, but I think we discussed a few days ago how it would be beneficial to trade Miles Michaelis and upgrade, because he's been absolutely terrible. And also Eric Fetty, my issue with him is the fact that he doesn't strike out anybody. If you're not striking people out, you need to generate ground ball outs, and he's not doing enough of either.
Yeah.
So the Cardinals are among the league's worst in terms of strikeouts by pitchers.
Now, if we have any hope at all about our offense, we should mention that Nolan Arenado and Wilson Contreras were both out during that series in Pittsburgh for at least one, if not 2 games due to injury. So they're 2 of our biggest hitters. If we can get them healthy, then I think that's going to help us a lot. So, Mike, any final thoughts?
I have. Actually, yeah, I do. Eric Fetty. I saw a stat online just the other day that Fetty is like dead last in the National League in fielding independent pitching, which goes back to not enough strikeouts and not enough ground balls, and that's not good. I'm not saying it can't be fixed, because I remember when the Cardinals acquired him at the deadline, he was, I think either last year or the year before, he was having a really good year for an absolutely terrible White Sox team.
Yeah.
But, still, he's got to do better, because if he doesn't do better, it's going to be hard for the Cardinals to do a lot.
Right. Tuck, any final baseball thoughts before we move on?
No, not from me.
Okay, well then we will move on to your sweet spot, and that is the St. Louis Blues and the NHL draft, as well as an unexpectedly fun free agency period for the Blue Note. I'm looking at ESPN's NHL draft grades. Take those with 3 of those blocks of salt that Tuck was offering. They give the Blues a B-, which is an astounding grade, considering that the Blues only had 3 picks. Of course, remember that the Vikings went into the NFL draft with a limited number of picks, and everyone pretty much crucified them with D and D- grades because of the paucity of picks that they had. The Blues, in case you didn't notice, had a number 1 pick, 19th pick overall. They took Justin Carbonneau, a right winger out of Canada. And then they didn't pick again until the 5th round, where they took Mikhail Fyodorodov. Love those Russian names. He's also a right winger. And then I don't know, this is a Swedish player. I don't know if he pronounces his first name Love or Love, or it's Love, but we'll just use English. Love Harenstam, and he's a goalie from Sweden. So, Tuck, tell us about these 3 draft picks and your overall thoughts about how the Blues did with a limited chance to choose.
Okay, well, first of all, it's been a while since I've been on the show, so credit where it's due. We need to say congratulations to Gary Bettman and Brett Marchand on their Stanley Cup win. I'm sure that,
Oh, stop it. Oh,
making them happy and making sure that they have their best life is really what all of this is about.
Yeah, Tucker's hate for Gary Bettman goes back years and years. So.
No, he's got his Southern teams winning the Cup, so, yay him. In order, the Blues did an outstanding job with the NHL draft, because we have to look at why did they only have 3 picks. They only had 3 picks because they took care of business last year when they offer sheeted Broberg and Holloway.
Got it.
Thanks,
so they won this draft last year, and anybody who kind of doesn't assess it in those terms isn't looking at the big picture. Who would you rather have? Broberg and Holloway or potential? Now, having said that, Carbonneau was a solid shot at that slot. As Mark and I have talked about on and on and on, the 06s and the 07s that we're seeing getting drafted this year, I've been watching them play since they were little kids because of my own family members' involvement in youth hockey. So it's the general consensus that the talent level generationally kind of drops a little bit from 06 to 07, kind of seen it across the country a little bit. And most of the people I talk to considered this to be a down year for the draft, okay? And I think also, so did the NHL GMs. If you look at it, the guys that I thought did the best in the draft were Utah by making the deal for Peterka from Buffalo. And you're talking about getting
That was a good trade. Really good trade.
Yeah, Bud.
They're the Sabres guys. That happens.
Yeah. And then Seattle going to town with Mason Marchmont and Freddie Gazura and Joe Velino. And of course the Blues with the Edmonton deals last year. You know, being that it was not a great year for the draft, and that happens, and this is nothing against any of the kids that got drafted, none of the kids that were in the pool. It just happens, right? I mean, there obviously there wasn't that kind of generational talent or that obvious slam dunk kid in the top 10. Of all of them, I think maybe Matthew Schaefer might be the only sure thing, and the Islanders got him at 1, and then also had 3 picks overall in the first round. So when you assess it in that way, in a down year, I think the Isles probably did the best with what limited options they had. As far as the other teams, you know, maybe the Devils had a good weekend. It's really tough to say, and I am no Mel Kiper. So this is one of those things where, it's going to take a couple of years to pan out.
Who the hell is Mel Kiper anyway?
I don't think the Blues could have done a better job considering what they had to work with and what they'd already invested into this season.
Yeah. Kyle, your thoughts on the draft and how the Blues did?
I'm very happy with Carbonneau. First and foremost, great hockey name, great lineage, and Guy Carbonneau did play for the Blues. But
no relation, though. No relation.
No, unfortunately. But you know what?
I posted on Facebook that if he gets to the big club, and it's a big if he's not wearing 21, there's no justice.
No, you're absolutely right. Now, I watched some footage of Carbonneau and Junior out of the Q League, and this kid. My only knock is that his shot he has a very heavy wrist shot, and it's explosive, but he has a slow relief. I would like for, as fast as the game is, and at the NHL level, I'd like to see his shot release increase to get it off quicker, because clearly he's a goal scorer. I believe his NHL comparable is Brock Besser of the Vancouver Canucks, who's he's a 30 to 35 goal scorer for Vancouver when they can actually put the puck in the net. Plus, he's a heavy kid. He's a 6 foot, 200-pound right winger with a heavy shot. Where have I heard that before for the St. Louis Blues? Just gonna throw that out there. That's all I'm saying. 89 points in 62 games in his draft eligible year in the Q League. I was very happy with it. And also a big thank you to the Edmonton Oilers for Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg. I'm just saying maybe you guys could have used those guys in the finals this year. Just saying.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, and I thought we were going to transition. I was going to ask Tuck his thoughts on the Pius Suter trade, the acquisition we made, and also trading out Zachary Bolduc to Montreal.
Well, I think it's all kind of interrelated, right? So, Bolduc had to go. There was a large long jam, especially in the top 6. Everybody knew it, except for, the yahoos on Instagram, I guess. So to get anything back at all is well done. But to bring in some defense when the perception, at least, is that we need some defense, very smart. I was really, very disappointed by a lot of the comments online when they signed Bustad, and people were like, why couldn't we keep Bolduc? Because, I don't know, Bustad is a center. Okay. The other cool thing is that the Bustad deal clearly set up the Suter deal. So now you got your 3-4 centers
right down the middle.
That gives Montgomery tons of options, and we know he likes to play. Now Sonny can possibly move back to the wing. Now we shored up our top six. Now it really, really, really puts the pressure on Cairo because his full no trade kicked in. It's on him now. I mean, the spotlight is going to be glaring this season, and let's hope that he rises to the challenge. But man, I can't drop the puck. I can't wait. It's going to be such a fun team to watch.
No, I'm aching. I am super aching, and I'm excited about the trade acquiring Logan Mailloux from Montreal. I looked at, and we got a small sample size out of him last season, but his offensive upside is insanely high. Plus, we needed a young right-handed defenseman. Plus, we just needed defensemen under 30. We're getting a little long in the tooth on the blue line, and we have a
they
ton
just
of
put
forward
Leddy on
prospects.
waivers today. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah.
No, I had not. But Nick Leddy going on waivers, that'll clear out some space, and I'd like to see what this kid has to offer. His offensive grade is really high. Defensively, he's poor, but he's also really young, and I'm very, very excited to see how we capitalize on the momentum with Monty. And also another thank you to the Boston Bruins for prematurely firing Jim Montgomery, because it's totally his fault that they did not prepare for life after David Krejci and Patrice Bergeron and had no centers. Totally his fault. I digress, though. Yeah, I'm aching. I think the Blues did well with what with the little bit that they had. Get another shoot first winger in the system, and then let the kids develop. Because I can't wait to see what Dvorsky can do and see what a full season of Snuggy Bear. And I think he'll be first or second line. And he's going to get a green light, so I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, let's give credit where credit is due. Among Blues fans, one of our mottos is "In Army We Trust," and Doug Armstrong really demonstrated during this free agent period with only about $6.5 million on their salary cap going into free agency. He has moved the pieces around like a master chess player. Most people were not expecting the Blues to be this active in free agency, and so Army has shown us again why he is one of the best executives in the NHL.
I can't even lie. I'm ecstatic about the trade you made. Suter scored 25 goals and had 46 points last year for Vancouver, playing a third line role. Now, his shooting percentage was alarmingly high at 18%. We'll see how sustainable that is. But what he and Bustad provide is solid center depth and penalty killers. And Big Nick is a guy, he's been around a long time. He's a huge body, eats up space, is a good face-off man, and you can never. It's like in baseball how you can never have enough good starting pitching. To me, in hockey, you can never have enough good centers who can win face-offs.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Any other thoughts on the NHL before we proceed?
Yeah, a couple. I'm sort of watching the free agency merry-go-round, and I thought it was hilarious on free agency day, watching Dallas, Florida, and Edmonton kind of, rotate guys, because that's pretty much who beat who in the playoffs there. Los Angeles is very, very active. It'll be really interesting to see if or how that's going to impact. There's been a lot of people making jokes that since they signed Terry, the Kings can look forward to losing in the final to Florida again.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing that happened, my very favorite thing that happened, because they're not even trying to hide it. Toronto does a sign and trade with Vegas for Marner. $8 million,
Marner, that's right.
8 years, right? At an astronomical number. The Knights don't have the room in the cap, so what happens? Pietrangelo magically goes on long-term injury reserve.
No, not no coincidence at all. None at all. Vegas, really? Again?
Yeah.
Come on,
They do it so often that it's got a name now. It's called Mark Stoning.
Oh, wow.
That got on everyone's nerve in 2023. That got on everybody's nerves.
So what is the deal? What is the deal with Vegas being the golden child of the NHL? Is it all that casino money?
Tampa Bay did the same thing in 2021.
Yeah.
The thing of it is this, okay, so there was a ginormous loophole in the collective bargaining agreement. They have closed it with the start of the 26th season. So this is the last chance for teams like Vegas and Tampa Bay to play that card. So this is the last hurrah.
Well, you should have called it Kucherov because they did it first. Even though in 2021 Tampa was so loaded, they didn't even need to. But, yeah, with the new CBA, teams can no longer use that little workaround to get, quote, under the cap, to circumvent the cap in the postseason.
Oh, since you mentioned the CBA, I'm going to backtrack to baseball. Has anybody seen, the early weather warning signs that I've seen this week about the expiration of Major League Baseball's collective bargaining agreement and how both sides are posturing, and there's a lot of talk already about an extended either strike or lockout. And I'm thinking baseball is barely holding on to its national popularity as it is. If they miss another season, you might as well just shutter the whole league.
You may be right, and honestly, it's looking like that this next work stoppage could be. I don't know if it would be as ugly as 94, 95, but I'm afraid it could challenge it. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm seeing some bad signs, and I think you guys are too.
Yeah, I mean, and baseball was still really popular. It was still a national sport, a nationally televised sport. I mean, you can't even find regionally televised baseball game. I can't. It's been at least 2 years since I've watched a Cardinals baseball game on national television. It's almost impossible to find, and I still have satellite TV. So I don't think this bodes well for baseball. Yeah. All right, we are going to try something different. Of course, these are the dog days of summer, and even though we have finally made it to July, and that means that football training camp is just a few weeks away, we still don't have our sweet spot in terms of what we talk about, and that is the NFL. So piggybacking on something that I mentioned from my friend Jeff South, who, by the way, let me put in another plug for Jeff. He's got a new book coming out later on this year. I'm not sure of a publication date. I know somebody else who has a new book coming out. Tuck?
Who would that be, I wonder?
Yeah, Armies of the Night. Tell us a little bit about that and how we can find it.
Okay, it's a series of novels that I'm co-writing with Bram Stoker Award nominee Dan Davis. Don is an old friend of mine who has written Sins of the Flesh, which was the title that got nominated, and then Bring on the Night. And then for his third book project, we decided to make it a series. So it right now the book one is in 3 different parts, so it's a trilogy. First part goes on sale at Amazon on July 22nd, and then part 2's dropping in August, and part 3 will be available in September, so you'll have the full book 1 by the end of September, and it's pretty freaking cool. I think that's easy for me to say. Basically, it's about Jonathan Chance, everyman who unwittingly releases a demon while attempting to resurrect his long-dead wife. He's then forced to begin a quest across the supernatural landscape of North America in order to stop the fiend before it tips the balance of order and chaos forever.
Awesome.
Real quick. Oh, yeah, that's the book cover. That's a back cover copy, sorry.
Of course.
Along the way, he'll encounter comrades in arms and enemy agents, immortal warrior priests, voodoo witches, mobsters, psionic psychotics, Russian werewolves, demons, and angels. A page turner for the whole family.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to be lining up to purchase my copy. I'm still old school. I hate Kindle. I can't stand reading. I like to have that paper copy in front of me, taking it with me to reading while I'm waiting for real life to call my name and number.
I'll tell you, I've got the comp copy in front of me here, and it is a nice package. The printer did an excellent job. I'm very pleased with it.
Outstanding, and we support independent authors and artists and freelancers, because that's who all of us are. So we want to support our colleagues in that. Anyway, getting back to Jeff South, he had a great idea. He had a great idea about a sequel to Bull Durham, in which Nuke LaLoosh is now the general manager of a big league team that is circling the drain, and so he goes back to the minors and tries to convince his old buddy Crash Davis, who's a manager in the minors, to come up and manage the big squad. So I thought that we could jump on top of that. And so today's sort of speculative movie question is, which baseball movie would you like to see either remade or rebooted or sequelized, and why? So if anybody has a hot idea, just jump in and go first.
Well, I actually have two.
Let's stick
Sorry,
with...
I'm the guest. I'm going first.
Yeah, let's stick with Tuck first.
I actually had, Ron Shelton had something of a Bull Durham sequel that he talked about on Eisen's podcast. I forget exactly how he put it, but it must have been something along the lines of, Nuke's in trouble and Crash got to come out of retirement and help him out. Because I had a similar notion that I thought that would be really cool. And so now that Jeff's got one too, hi Jeff, if you're listening, clearly it's in the wind. So, Costner needs to get with Tim Robbins and figure it out. The thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about, first of all, and Sanders knows that I'm clear on this, no movie should be ever remade or rebooted ever. Give us new stuff. That's your job. But what I'd like to see is them take 8 Men Out and make a Netflix or a Prime series or something along that line, and really kind of get into not only, because the trial would be awesome on a binged basis, and then you could really kind of do some cool stuff in the aftermath and what happened. It's Shoeless Joe working in the liquor store in Georgia and thinking that Ty Cobb didn't recognize him when he was stopped through. It just, you could have so much fun with it. So if anybody's listening to this, 10%, I need 10%, and then you guys go run with it.
That's a great idea. I like that. Mike, did you have one?
I think it'd be cool if we had a sequel to Major League. I keep having this picture in my head that 35 years after the original run of the Cleveland Indians, that Ricky Vaughn has basically turned into Lou Brown. I can almost picture him with having the same, gruff, sardonic wit that I had in the original Major League. I'm not saying it's work, but I think it would be cool. And like Chuck, I'm not a big fan of reboots, because, if you could do a reboot right, that's great, but maybe it's just my own weirdness and my own being on the spectrum weirdness, but doing a good true reboot is hard to do. However, I would take a great sequel any day of the week, and a new Major League movie with, Ricky Vaughn having kind of mellowed out and gotten gruff, with that Lou Brown-esque wit, I think would be great.
Yeah.
Sure how everybody else would be doing, 35 years after the original run, but I think it could be done great if it was done right, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that's interesting. I think Major League is way up there. The original movie, whenever I see anyone's top 5 baseball movies list, Major League is always part of the discussion. That, of course, is in part the great work that Bob Uecker did calling those games. It's just so entertaining. So I think one of the things that we need to think about is, who can we get in the Uecker role? Because, he was one of a kind. It would be really hard to find someone like that.
Bob is irreplaceable.
Yeah. Kyle, what's your pitch?
T, I was thinking about this just a little while ago, and I'm going to go a little, and as I'm with Tuck, don't reboot movies unless the movie was so bad you want to make an apology film, cough, cough, Super Mario Brothers. Cough, cough, all video game movies that haunt my childhood.
Yeah.
But
me, don't watch the Minecraft movie then. Don't do it.
I want to take one off the beaten path because it's one of my favorite baseball movies, and I feel it got swept under the rug because in the mid '90s we had a lot of those feel-good baseball movies that were trying to remind people that, hey, even if Major League Baseball's on strike, this stuff's still fun. I would like to see a modern version of Little Big League.
Ooh.
Starring with a special cameo and a little wink and nod, Pete Crow Armstrong, because his mother played the mom in Little Big League.
Really? That's interesting. I hadn't heard that before.
Yes, his mom, Ashley Crow, is Billy Haywood's mother. The mother of the owner of the Minnesota Twins, the 12-year-old boy who owned the Twins.
Wow.
And you had a movie that actually had the gall to cast George Kenneth Griffey Jr. as a villain, and made the Seattle Mariners in 1994, with the coolest and best baseball player in the world at the time, make them the bad guys.
I have to admit something. You talk about a movie that got overlooked. I just brought it up on IMDb because obviously I've heard the title before, and now I'm looking at it and it's like, I have never seen this movie.
Never? Oh, it's a beauty. It's got Timothy Busfield playing the star of the Twins, Lou Collins, and it features a ton of active major leaguers at the time.
Yeah. Guys
like Mickey Tettleton, Carlos Baerga, Rafael Palmeiro. It's got Chris Berman in it, Dave Magadan, and Lou Piniella. But as a kid, also, it was the first baseball movie to actually teach me about the game of baseball and teach me situations and learning some history in it as well. I'd like to see a modern version of that, and have PCA in it as a little Easter egg, since his mother was a co-star in the movie.
Yeah, that's a neat idea. I like that. Okay, so here's mine, and one of my favorite baseball movies of all time is Field of Dreams, and
beauty.
And fun fact, I've actually not only been to the Field of Dreams, shout out to Mike Wagner, one of our other friends from college, who has, since he graduated from college, he's lived the rest of his life in the Iowa City area. So back in the early 90s, he drove me out to Dyersville, Iowa, to the Field of Dreams, and somewhere in a shoebox, I've got pictures of me hitting and pitching and playing first base on the field where they filmed that movie. So that was a lot of fun. So here's my pitch. The daughter of Kevin Costner and Amy Madigan? Is that right?
Not sure.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think that's right. Anyway, Kevin Costner's daughter is now a grown-up, and she's facing some sort of crisis in her life, and we find as the movie unfolds that she doesn't really remember what happened on that baseball field. She was fairly young, and I don't know, you can figure out all the backstory, but basically she's at this crisis in her life, and something happens, and she gets called back to the family farm in Iowa, and the field is gone, and she gets the same message as her father did, and then she really starts to look in and talk to some of the people who remember, and just play it out from there. I think you could bring in. Here's who I would use instead of Shoeless Joe, because obviously Ray Liotta's gone, and you have to have him to play that role. But I would make the voice come from, or at least the first player come from Jackie Robinson. I think you bring Jackie back on that.
I like it.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I came up with. And let's face it, there are dozens of different platforms for film and series productions to play, out in the entertainment landscape, and yet I spend practically every night just scrolling through all of the options on Netflix or Prime or Disney Plus, thinking, I've watched all of this, and there's nothing else I want to watch. So there's plenty of room for a few new baseball movies. So if if anyone is a developer or a producer, again, like Tuck said, 10% is all you need to license the idea.
I'd like to see more sports movies return in general. I feel like there's so many stories that have not been told yet.
Oh, absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be in documentary form. Which, don't get me wrong, I love my docs. I have the first 5 seasons of 30 for 30 on Blu-ray, so I love those. But putting them in a motion picture setting, I mean, it gives us stuff like 42, Pride of the Yankees. For those who've never seen that, if you haven't, you always make sure you have your hankies ready when you watch that movie.
Maybe the estate of Laura Branigan would want to make a little bit of extra money off of her song Gloria, and they could make a movie about the 2019 Blues Stanley Cup victory.
You could not do that better than the boys did in real life. I couldn't even imagine who would play Patrick Maroon or Drunk Holly.
You would get Drunk Holly to play Drunk Holly, absolutely.
Good grief. Did you ever hear the story? Did you guys ever hear the story that there were people trying to actively push the arch into the river that night that we won?
It doesn't surprise me. And here's another fun fact. Brett Hull hit on my sister at the High Point Cafe back in 1995. Or no, excuse me, 1992.
Oh, I was about to say, if it was 1995, I wouldn't blame him for being drunk because he was playing for Mike Keenan.
No, he came into the High Point Cafe. I think Cujo was with him and maybe one other player, but Brett Hull, of course, was immediately recognizable. And yeah, hit on my sister. So that was fun.
Oh my gosh.
Hey Tuck, you want to give a shout out to Nikki Glazer and her Drunk Holy joke at the NHL Draft?
Oh,
absolutely. When they announced she was given the pick, you and I were like, boy, she's got to go Brett Hull. She's got to do a Brett Hull, right? And she did not disappoint. So thank you, Nikki Glazer, wherever you are.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, if you've never taken the time to watch the Tom Brady roast, which I believe is on Netflix, she just absolutely kills it. She is the funniest thing, and just as brutal as Don Rickles or Jeffrey Ross ever was. Just one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
I got asked by my boss this morning if I'd actually seen that roast before. He's like, dude, you got to watch that one. Because I said I didn't think it would be that funny, quite frankly.
Some of it's not, but Nikki
missed out.
Yeah, Nikki Glazer's worth time. All right.
Well, I mean, we still at the house go around saying, even me know that not real money. I mean, it's a classic line now. So.
Oh my God, that is so good. All right,
I'll keep this Kevin Hart.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to go around the horn with just a quick thing to keep the NFL in play. It's our hottest NFL take for your favorite NFL team. And so, Mike, we're going to start with you in the Tennessee Titans. Your hottest take going into training camp.
I'm drinking the Cam Ward Kool-Aid. I think it's going to be a fun year. I'm not going to say anything big like we're going to win the Super Bowl, but I think we have a chance to be genuinely better than we've been the last couple of years. I think he may be the best franchise quarterback since Steve McNair, and I feel like we've maybe turned the corner. Like I said, I may be drinking the Kool-Aid, but there's a lot of optimism in our camp right now, and I'm going to ride with it and enjoy it for the time being.
I like it. Drink the Kool-Aid. As a Titans fan, you've got nothing left to lose. There's no place to go but up. So get on board the bandwagon. All right, Kyle, you and your dangerously frustrating Los Angeles Rams.
Aren't we just irritating sometimes? God, I love when we make the playoffs when no one expects us to do anything. I just love it. I really couldn't think of anything that was scorching hot this year, but if I had to make one, I'm going to say Devontae Adams returns to form with Matthew John Stafford and Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams. And the Rams will have a top 10 total offense in 2025.
Interesting. again, I don't think
Devontae Adams has never had an offensive coach as good as Sean McVay.
Well, you're right about that. If I were still a Rams fan, and that ended the day they announced that they were leaving St. Louis for me, but if I were still a Rams fan, I would be carrying a bottle of Pepto-Bismol around with me by the time the regular season started, and lighting candles in a church for the health of Matt Stafford. Oh my goodness,
We got one good year left of him.
Yeah,
I'm aware.
And he's the popular injury for old quarterbacks is an Achilles, but don't discount an ACL or an MCL. But he's one lower body injury away from retirement, and you guys don't have a backup over there.
Prayer circle, because our backup is the most handsome man in the NFL, Jimmy Garoppolo.
And isn't Jimmy older than Stafford?
No.
Okay, well, he plays like he is.
Him have no arm.
Tuck, this is a tricky question because I know for years your rooting interest has been aligned with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but you've got a problem at quarterback there in Pittsburgh. So
no, we solved it. Yeah, you're right. This is traditionally a Steelers house. And we said going into free agency with all the noise around Rodgers and whatnot, they said the second they signed Rodgers, we're putting all our Steelers stuff into storage, and we have done that.
Wow. Yeah.
We will not. We're and I'm saying we, my family and I. We raised the kids right. They knew from the Steel Curtain and T.J. Watt and the whole bit, but no, sir, we're not doing it. We're not spending one down with those second worst game show hosts in history. We've changed allegiances for the purposes of as long as he's over center. So I'm not saying I'm giving up on the team. I'm merely taking a break the same way they've taken a break from me being their fan. So this is definitely supporting either the Lions in the NFC or the Bills. Want to see a long suffering franchise.
Yes.
So my hot take is because of all these bandwagon jumping fans, of which I clearly, I own it. I am absolutely jumping on the bandwagon. The Bills are winning the Super Bowl this year because of all the front runners, 100%. They're gonna channel that energy and finally get over the hump.
I would love to see that as long as they're not playing the Vikings.
Tucky, may I interject just for a moment? How long have you been a Steelers fan, sir?
How can I put this? I'll just say it. When I was a kid, we moved around an awful lot, and my dad ended up in Shreveport, Louisiana, which you might know as the home of Terry Bradshaw, and also oh God, who was the other one? There's a quarterback from the Bills, actually, who also lived there in town. So pretty much, I don't know, since I was 9-10 years old, I suppose.
So I only ask this for this reason, because my hot take for your Steelers is that y'all are going to do something you never do. Mike Tomlin's getting fired midseason because of Aaron Rodgers. That's my hot take for the Steelers.
That could be.
However,
I thought Eisen had the best line about all this, where he said the Steelers this year are a great team 4 years ago. So,
ooh.
Yeah.
That pretty, but it clocks it, though. And so, I don't really, go with God. If they, they make the playoffs, win the Super Bowl, great, happy for them, whatever. But I'll be cheering a long-suffering franchise who needs a parade. And honestly, Sanders, the only reason I went Detroit instead of Vikings, who are also long-suffering, is that my mom's whole side of the family is from Michigan. So
I knew
I went with the
that.
uncles, so.
And you want to keep the peas, but I only wanted to interject because to me, there are certain NFL franchises that when you hear their name, you immediately think of a certain way they play football. and like the Chicago Bears and the Pittsburgh Steelers. This team, I grew up with the Blitzburg era. I'm a Greg Lloyd, Rod Woodson guy.
Yeah.
This team does not feel like the Pittsburgh Steelers. They feel like cosplayers in Steelers uniforms.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Wow.
You are imposters wearing the uniforms of the Steel Curtain and Blitzburg.
The disappointment is profound. I don't know any other way to put it. I have a lot of friends who are Steelers fans who are putting on a happy face, and it's all it is.
And this is a shout out to one of my favorite YouTubers and the biggest yinzer walking God's green earth urinating tree. He once referred to Mike Tomlin as a cheerleader and called him Dan Bilesma, the former Pittsburgh Penguins head coach. I think toughness when I think of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think physical, intimidating football. I think of the team when they step on the field, you've already lost because they've won the mental game. You're scared of Polamalu. You're scared of Debo. You were scared of Prime Bus and guys like that. 320-pound Casey Hampton, Joey Porter, and the like. I could go all day. And I'm not a Steelers fan like that, but it makes me mad. This is not the Pittsburgh Steelers. This would be like if the Chicago Bears all of a sudden became soft. That's not the Bears. You see my point? And I'm surprised.
Yeah, I was way ahead of you months ago. That's why I've got a Bills jersey hanging in the closet now. So.
And shout out, and I'm on the MCDC bandwagon. I mean, I've been with the Bills for years because no fan base deserves what they've been through.
I agree 100%.
And that's not just the Buffalo Bills. That's the city of Buffalo, the Sabres, the fact that OJ's a famous athlete from there, and this and that, and da-da-da-da-da-da.
Well, the Sabres are starting to feel an awful lot like the late-term St. Louis Rams where they're thinking of moving, or the late-term Bill Laurie Blues where they're thinking of selling. I don't understand any of the moves that they've made this offseason. And it's even more perplexing because Jarmo is one of their advisors now.
No team, and that gave me hope that Jarmo Kekalainen is now in their front office because he did a great job with us, did a great job in Columbus, and the thing
he
is,
did any job at all in Columbus is really kind of saying something. I don't understand where this thing's coming from. I really don't. But
and the Blue Jackets, to me, they're a playoff team next year. They just missed out. R.I.P. Johnny Hockey, by the way, but no, but that was my little Steelers tangent because they make me angry. Yeah. They don't feel like they should. Again, like that. You know what it reminds? You know what it makes me think of? The fact that the Cleveland Browns are going to be an indoor football team. They should never play indoors.
The fact that
flow through you.
This is the AFC North.
The fact that Cleveland of all cities is not only going to get a new stadium, but it's going to be taxpayer funded, just shows you how stupid Cleveland fans are.
There's a reason why they call that place the Mistake on the Lake.
It's the factory of sadness.
Oh my God. Okay, here's my medium high take. Now, this to the uninitiated, to observers outside of the Vikings, this is going to seem like a hot take. But for those of us who've been drinking purple Kool-Aid since the 1970s, it's the coming of the Messiah. So here's the take that I brought into today. J.J. McCarthy will take the Vikings to the NFC Championship game. Yeah, they're.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I think they're going to win the North. I think all of the changes for Detroit, the loss of their coordinators, plus losing 40% of their offensive line, I think they're going to take a step back. Plus, their schedule is about 3 slots harder than the Vikings' schedule. So I think the Vikings edge them out. I think they play at home in the divisional round, and then they're gonna host the NFC Championship game. Whether they'll win it, I can't tell. I'll have to see where they are. But you guys talking about Tomlin losing his job, this is a smoking hot take, and I've just cooked this out of my brain. And you're both, Kyle, you and Tucker, responsible for the inception. You ready? Mike Tomlin gets fired. The Steelers hire Brian Flores away from the Vikings as their new head coach. And Mike Tomlin returns to the Vikings as their new defensive coordinator.
Oh, wow.
Woo-wee.
Look, you're going to need to start doing trigger warnings if you're going to talk like that.
I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, that's not a hot take. That's a nuclear hot take.
Also,
That
Brian
is
Flores
good.
will be an NFL
No.
head coach.
Mark Sanders just dropped the Czar Bomba, y'all. 50
Yeah,
megatons.
Tuck, you were a little garbled. What was the last thing you said?
I said I got to sit down now.
Well, if anyone stayed tuned in this long, hopefully we made it worth your time.
I sure hope so. It's been great.
Agreed.
Yeah. Tuck, we
will be
want to thank
icing on
you.
the cake, y'all.
Yeah, we want to thank Tuck again for spending an hour with us. Thank all of you out there in podcast land. Remember, you can catch us on Facebook, Spotify, or YouTube. We also have revised our Facebook page, so it is now listed. Mike figured out how to change that old name, so we are now listed under the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. So thank you.
Should be.
Yes, thank you, Mike, for taking care of that, and take us home.
That's right. It's been a great show, you guys, and we're going to sign off for this week. I'm Mike Bueller.
I'm Mark Sanders.
And I'm Kyle Roberts.
And you have been listening to the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.